Last week, PiS passed an education amendment that would empower superintendents to control what NGOs and activist groups are allowed to do in Polish schools. The rationale for the amendment is simple. Teachers are often very liberal. Schools are dominated by ideological leftists. Even in Poland, it is true. One of my relatives is in high school near Warsaw. She told me that in her school, being LGBT is cool and a kid can benefit from identifying this way, many doing so. With, of course, the case in the West, where kids are encouraged to identify this way and professional LGBT advocates go into schools and promote this ideology. Public school teachers in Poland are often very liberal. But at a higher level, superintendents are political appointees, so giving them the power to say no to LGBT groups is an effective strategy. It will work. I think it's also true that this empowers parents as well, because they can bring their concerns over what teachers are doing to the superintendent. And PiS is at least somewhat responsive to what their voters want, so they can't just ignore parent groups. The law requires that the principal obtain detailed information about the action plan of the associations or organizations in the school, participation of a student in classes conducted by associations or organizations will require the written consent of the parents. What are the teachers teaching the kids? What are these groups? Everyone should support that part of the law. But of course, many LGBT activists don't. They don't want parents informed. It's not law yet. It needs to be signed by President Duda. He didn't sign the ban on foreign ownership of Polish media law, but he will sign this bill. He basically ran his campaign on fighting LGBT ideology in general, and especially in schools. I would say with his number one campaign promise, he can't not sign it. The law is also good from an optics perspective. If nothing in the law itself is aimed at LGBT education. If the law did include that, it would present a problem with our friends from America. The American embassy would protest. It's impossible for Poland to have a Russian-style law. It would be very hard for the Americans to apply pressure on this law. It's too much of an internal Polish thing. Now let's talk about Konfederacja. Konfederacja voted against the bill. 9 voted against, 2 were absent because they refused to wear a mask. Let's look at how Robert Winnicki explains his vote against Lex Czarnek. No honest conservative should support Lex Czarnek. When changing the government to a left-wing or liberal one, it will end with elimination of any conservative content, people, and circles from the education system. For their temporary comfort, they are preparing the way to separatism. Separatism is striving for all kinds of religious symbols to disappear from the public sphere. Of course, Polish schools have a lot of crosses. So what Winnicki is saying, since this law gives this power, a liberal government might use it to get rid of crosses from public schools. I completely disagree with Robert Winnicki. A liberal government will do it anyways. I grew up in the West, and one thing a lot of nationalists from America believe is that conservatism has to be abandoned, and adherence to conservatism is doomed to fail. In America, a conservative today is just what a liberal was 10 years ago, maybe less. The Republican Party right now supports transgender people, but just doesn't want them in women's sports. We are at war, an ideological war. Our opponents don't make themselves ineffective. Why should we? Poland isn't in the dire situation that Western nationalists are in, so some adherence to conservatism makes more sense here. But we are going the way of the West, and we should learn the lessons of the West, and we should abandon adherence to conservative values. It won't win, it will lose, we'll keep moving to the left. We have to do things that win, and banning LGBT activists from our schools helps us. That's it. Don't think about what liberals will do when they take power. As I said, we're going to do it anyways. Of course, Winnicki is from the nationalist wing of Konfederacja. For the libertarian wing, Artur Dziambor opposed Lex Czarnek for centralizing the system. He proposes an education voucher alternative where parents can choose from a variety of free market education systems. I also think libertarianism is doomed to fail. It's designed to fail. People with libertarian ideology give up state power, they give up collective power. It's an attractive idea, but I think a little naive. Kind of interesting though. If you're from Poland and you would like to learn more about LGBT issues, I would highly recommend Vanessa Woki's YouTube channel. She'd make very good content from a feminist perspective about what's going on in the West. I'll link it in the description. Anyway, that's it for today. Do widzenia.